The irony is, I forgot. Yeah.
Hi everyone, can people hear me? I think everyone is muted, so I can't hear anything. Sorry, can people speak please so that I can hear? Hello, hi everyone.
Hi Jennifer, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, sorry, there was some noise in my room. I had to mute my mic.
Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Marcus. You hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Hi,
Okay.
Nopramat.
Okay, good.
Can hear you as well. Hi, Nopramat.
Okay. Sorry, technical problem.
Oh, really? Looks okay to me.
Yeah, but right now it's okay now.
Oh, Francis is here, but he cannot log in as a speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a webinar that we hosted by THAC ADR International ADR Series number 10. And I'm Nopama Thammathiladecho. I will be the moderator for this webinar. So the topic for today is that the global trend in online mediation as a tool for dispute resolution. So today, as we know that for the disputes that we can be solved by the mediation, instead of we go to court or go to the arbitration. However, during the COVID pandemic, so there are so many forums for the mediation that provide the online mediation. And there are also several criticisms whether or not this online mediation will be the next trend after the COVID-19. For today, topics is the very in-trend topic because in 12th September this year, Singapore Convention on Mediation will be effective. That will, and right now there are almost 46 countries that sign up for this convention. I think it's a good opportunity that we can come and to discuss this topic. And today we have the three distinguished guest speakers that will be share the information concerning the online mediation with us. First, I'd like to introduce Professor Francis Law. Professor Francis Law is the president of Hong Kong Mediation Center, and also he has held several positions in other organizations. For example, founding chairman of Mainland Hong Kong Joint Mediation Center, founding chairman of International Dispute Resolution and Leaks Management Institute, and other keys mediation and dispute resolution in Hong Kong. Professor Law also have the experience in international business consult and expert of dispute resolution. He has more than 30 years of experience in public administration management, human resources, conflict management, and corporate development. He also provided training globally more than to the mediator, more than 3,000 mediator and 150 assessors. So we are very honored that we have Professor Law to be one of our panelists today. And for the second guest speaker is Mr. Marcus Lim, the Chief Executive Officer of Singapore International Mediation Institute, known as SIMI. Marcus is, before he joining the SIMI, he is the lawyer in the competition, technology, media, and telecommunication area. He was working with reputable Singapore law firms. He is qualified as the advocate and solicitor in Singapore. Apart from being a lawyer and a CEO, he himself is also the mediator and the lecturer with the National University of Singapore in the program for the NUS negotiation and mediation workshop. And for the we are really happy and pleased to have Marcus Lim to be one of our speakers today. And the third speaker that we pleased to have her in our panelists that Ms. Jennifer Lim. Jennifer Lim is the International Dispute Resolution lawyer working with Cicely Austin based in Singapore. And she has conducted several international commercial arbitration and investor state arbitration. And also she been recognized by the Who's and Who's Legal as the future leader. Jennifer also have done several cases for the under the exit rule, CSAC, SIAC rule, HKIAC rules, and other international institute rules. So we are also honored that she joined this webinar with us. So before we for today's webinar, we're going to use the approach that we will ask the question to each speaker, and then the speaker will share their discussion, their idea. But before we go through the detail of the topic, I, as the representative for the THAC, I like to share some of the update for the online mediation in Thailand. Thailand is the civil law country that our law allows the judge, and it is the judge's duty to mediate the disputants in the court case as well. So we as the litigation lawyer, we're quite familiar with the mediation in court. However, in the past 2 decades, the court have considered and give the important role to the mediation as the alternative dispute resolution for Thai court system. The court decided to separate the mediation office from the in-court mediation, but the mediation office still be located in the same court, but the mediator will not be the judge. During the COVID-19, Thai court also allows the parties to use the online mediation. Even though in the past 10 years, we already have the virtual hearings for the witness who are living abroad and cannot come to Thailand to testify in Thai court. But for the mediation, it has been always required the disputant and the party to mediate face to face. However, as you know that for the COVID-19 pandemic, it is not possible, or it is very difficult for the foreign party to come to attend the mediation in Thailand. That's why it's the reason that the court allowed Thai people and the foreign party to use the online mediation. And for the latest statistic that we obtained from Thai court, that from the 217 Thai courts that using the online mediation from this March until this August, that there are total around 20,000 cases. And the result for the successful case that using the online mediation is almost 92%. So there is only the 8% fails in the online mediation. This kind of something that maybe is the new trend for Thai mediation, or that for Thai court to using online mediation. However, in Thailand, apart from the mediation in court, the parties can still choose to mediate by the institute like THAC. THAC also provide the mediation offline and online. And also that THAC provided the training for the mediators and also have the list of qualified mediators. So that will be the choice and the optional for the disputant who want to use the mediator out of court. So right now I like to move to the international aspect of the online mediation. So I like to ask Professor Law for the new trend of the online mediation and in the aspect of the international mediation. Professor Law, the floor is for you, please.
Thank you, Palma. And also thank you for TJC organized the online webinar for us to join to talk about the up-to-date online mediation development. First of all, we would like to say there's something that is important is right now, if you ask what would be the new trend in dispute resolution, definitely mediation is the, we say that mediation is the first, or you can say the new trend for dispute resolution. So in international aspect, well, when we talk about mediation, including international trade, globalization, and investment, Belt and Road Initiative, they all have been bringing a huge number of international trade and investment. Frequent transactions, cultural differences, legal system difference, and trade practice cause a lot of dispute. Mediation is proven to be the best approach to resolve business dispute. Will catch the eyes of most business people who look for a fair and efficient dispute resolution, which will take care of their comprehensive interests. But developing countries and also the underdeveloped countries are eager to have a well-structured mediation system to take care of their citizens and business interests and concerns. Well, I think we can see there's a lot of new arrangement to facilitate the use of mediation, like what actually our moderator actually mentioned about it, the Singapore Convention. Its official name is the United Nations Convention on International Settlement Agreements, resulting from mediation, which is will come into effect on this 12th September this year. We have over 53 countries signed and over 55 of the world population, around 4 billion people are benefited because this country has entered into the agreement. They signed up to the convention, they are going to observe it. But there were very category or the special arrangement for this convention, unlike the previous one, is majority are Asian and Belt and Road countries. Among this country, 55 countries, the Asia and the Belt and Road countries actually involve over 45. So that means this reflects the fact people in the Asia and the developed or underdeveloped country are well received or well concerned about using mediation as a very effective way for them to resolve this dispute. For the online mediation, so we have also technical or in most of every part of our living for checking out our friends are doing on social media, in what is going to have to eat in dinner or organizing our finance. They all attribute to use some technology things, which is online. And that's why we think that it's going to be more effective in using an online approach to use mediation. Well, there's a great increase of cross-border transaction using online and the parallel need of mechanism for resolving dispute. So the UNCITRAL, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, agreed to its 33rd section to undertake the field in the online dispute resolution. That's UNCITRAL finally adopted a new technical note on online dispute resolution in this 49th section in 2006 that incorporate 60 countries in the the UNCITRAL to find out the expert idea how to monitor, how to prepare, and how to work out the regulation that monitor the best effect of online dispute resolution, including online mediation. And experience in Asia and China also tells that there's a very important development in online mediation. For instance, let us talk about something in China. Since 2016, we have been implementing online court, and most of the city in China have been the online mediation system, either by desktop or by mobile apps. As you may know, mobile is the top priority of all Chinese. They can go out without a purse or a wallet, but they cannot go out with a mobile. So mobile become everyday's living, and that's naturally to use online mediation to resolve their dispute happen in the daily life. So it's a very, very common area in using online mediation. And the other aspect is COVID-19. So we have the problem of COVID-19 since early 2020. So it catch the world a surprise. It spread out over the globe, putting huge population that are a lockdown or infecting over 4 million people and over 600,000 in divesting economies. So we have conducted a study on using during this period using mediation for 30 different countries, and they couple with a concern about the regulation, the physical environment, and the government restrictions that applies because of the virus. Well, it's very interesting to find out or know that the use of online mediation has been drastically increased by an average of over 10 times. So that means most of the cases right now in resolving this dispute, they are using online mediation. Besides, all reference activities like training, assessment of mediators, webinar like today we have, and conference have been raised sharply in using online approach. So our next slide we'll see there are a lot of different aspects in using mediation. One is concerning about the interests or advantages. So it will have all the mediation talking about the use of mediation will bring up a lot of interest. For online, we do have the ordinary mediation advantage plus something more. So we can see from this PowerPoint that we have for mediation, we should know that we have the full control by the parties. It is speedy, it's a very, very low cost. And flexibility, that means they can do everywhere, any cases, and with a very good result in most of cases, where the result is definitely very unique, that even the court or arbitration cannot result in what we have achieved by mediation. Simply something protecting the interest can work out if that is not illegal. So they provide a very good confidentiality protection. It will be lower hostility because people will not will having the understanding of the problem and the difficulty of the other side to get the understanding and try to fix out how to gain the interest by both sides. So the hostility problem can be a bit more safe. And this finality, that means they will not easy to go for appeal or object for the result. But in top of the mediation, physical, we will have online advantage, where is talking about the atmosphere. It's very focused, concerned. People in the mediation party will take particular attention to the other side's expression, understanding the situation, and we will have a more easy situation for both sides because they are not physically touched. And for the psychological aspect, people will be feeling safe and also secure in the process, and they can rely on what they understand and get more preparation because they no need to go face to face directly or contact. But the other side is about we're talking about is the environment aspect. We can without border, so we can just stay in one place using the technology to contact with the other side by the platform online. And no need to fly to other places, especially for the cross-border one. No, we don't need to fly from London to Thailand, Bangkok, or to Hong Kong because they have to settle this case. They can just use the online way, so that it'll be easier. Safety and security measure can be secure. And definitely, like other things, they will have the other disadvantage on online mediation. First of all, what we have discussed is atmosphere. In a sense, some party will appear to be isolated from the other side because they are just looking at the screen. They will have the communicate with some delay, so they will have the difficulty in focus all the important issues and build up the rapport by that we have stressed on the benefit of mediation. But another thing is psychological aspect. It's difficult to establish an emotional comfort or understanding to the other side, because through the facilitation of mediator, because they will have a layer of difference that will be protecting from understanding the other side, or psychologically, they think that they are not actually interacting. So another aspect is the technical aspect. Some cases, not all the places, are well equipped with the high-speed technology in the internet. So that will be face some problem and other things, or the system platform is not well designed to match the need in online mediation. So they will have some bugs or some kind of delayed or even hack the system through the technical problems. And confidentiality and security concerns sometimes will be for the online. We know over the internet, there's a difficult to protect all the confidential issues or security or safety, the security one. So people were concerned of cyber security problem. They were concerned the document hand in or fly in through the internet may have the problem in language, just like what we have concerned about previously in Zoom setting and other kind of works. So that will have a concern that using the online mediation. So definitely there's a different approach in online mediation. We have basically three aspects in the online mediation. First one, a fully automatic online negotiation website such as Cybersettle, Settlement Online, and NetSettle offers services that are entirely online, focused primarily on negotiation on the monetary settlement. So this website serves as a neutral avenue to exchange settlement offers. Just mainly concerned about the negotiation part. It's not being the format go directly into about the mediation. So they will have to consider the second place is the traditional mediation that will use online technology to supplement. They will design have some kind of website such as the internet, like Natural, Square Tag, and Web Mediate to facilitate the resolution of disputes. Although this website really relied mainly on the online technology such as email, listeners, chat rooms, and instant message, they also incorporate more traditional communication methods into the negotiation process. So they will having the issues, or typically the party contacts the service and find out the online form that identify problems and possible resolutions. The mediator then reveal the forms and contact the other party to see if they will participate in the mediation. If the party agrees to participate, they can fill out their own form on dispute to the initial form through email. This initial exchange of views may help to the parties to understand the dispute better and possibly to reach an agreement. If the dispute remains unresolved, the mediator will work out the party to help the determine issues, articulate interests, and evaluate the potential solution. And the third one will be a full function online platform using the sophisticated software dedicated to use for mediation, which is we have the IDRMI ODR, the Latin Americano ODR, Quantum Mobile Mediation Platform, or Hangzhou mediation platform, something like that. So they use an innovative negotiation process and powerful computer software program that enable multiple parties to participate in interest-based negotiation. They will support by AI in the prospective stage, preparation stage, in the mediation section, and drafting settlement agreement section. So actually, the mediator will have the full support from the AI system, how to present, how to prepare with a guideline, and how to respond, basically. That will be very sophisticated and decided. So that automatically transferred to the court for judicial endorsement or to arbitration Center for the Actual Award. This process is having the phases divided into different phases to facilitate the whole model of mediation complete. Finally, get the very efficient resolution for both sides. So that's what happened actually in the online mediation with different approaches. And we can say further on the way forward on online mediation. We will have some kind of new development talking about maybe for the next slide you will see it. They will have a one-shop DR service platform or ODR alliance. Actually doing is do the mediation on a platform that provide mediation, arbitration, and other kind of things. Disputants or the parties actually can go for the platform, go directly, using the the designated services and say mediation. They complete it and even they want to transfer or convert in other kind of method or change to other approach can be easily done over the platform. So this online platform actually sometimes go with alliance among ODR platforms. So they will have a more powerful effect on execution, enforcement, something like that. And the second one will be, second forward will be getting more important development for the online mediation. They will connect with a different approach. Like we have said that this using mediation first, they will try to resolve the problem and the concern, giving out the result, and they will transfer or convert into other like meet-up, expert review, and mediation and conversion into court. Something like that can make the enforceability effective. So this will submit, we have a very desirable approach that later our other speaker, Jennifer, will talk more about it, this meet-up approach. Is going to have a very good approach in resolving with a very flexible and less hostile approach, protecting both sides' interests and have a very promising approach in enforcement. And forward, another way we have to consider is about the online mediation will be about the professional assurance system. So the platform and the mediator go for online mediation have a very unique or important concern. Both the international recognition, or you can say that the Singapore Convention also mentioned about the quality, about the standard, and how to protect both sides' interests should be a prime importance. So another thing we have to build in this assurance system to monitor the performance of particular sectors. So the mediators or the mediation organizations actually have a very clear step and rules to monitor that arrangement. And also they will have a very desire to design for the accreditation, that is assessment for the mediator's performance. They are high standard and a high quality qualifying system required for the professional mediator to go for online mediation with a particular important knowledge, know-how, and experience. And sustainability, definitely, how to further development and how to enhance the performance through the existing development or how the design for the mediation platform. That will be the way forward. And also, we will see something very important is that when we have to concern about the next step, going for the mediation, is talking about the overall matching with the Singapore Convention in the requirement to enforcement. And during the time of that, before we actually effect on the Singapore Convention in all countries or majority of the countries. So what to do is how to do for the grace period when they're not actually put in the effect for all places. So about the meet-up, what we have discussed, and about other conversion arrangement will be our concern on how to facilitate the online mediation in the coming days. So that will be the end of my presentation, and very thank you for your listening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Professor Law, thank you very much sharing that you sharing with us the very trendy online mediation. Especially, it's interesting to hear about the using the AI in online mediation. That also could be. I think it's likely that it will come. So for right now, I think that we like to ask Marcus to share with us about the how is the process for the accreditation and certification in the online environment, similar or different from the physical training and assessment. So I think that I actually attended the online online mediation workshop with Sage last 2 months, and I quite satisfied with the course. So I think that also the system that CME has set and promote for the accreditation and the certification is seem to be very useful. But and I like to ask Marcus to share with us for this accreditation and certification system in the online environment. Please, Marcus, the floor is for you.
Thank you, Kundupramat. So I don't really have slides because I wanted this to be a more dynamic kind of a session. And I think maybe what would be helpful is just to talk a little bit more about how traditional accreditation and certification for mediation training courses and services are normally done, right? And I don't want to make it all just about what we do at CIMI, because to be honest, many of the institutes, when it comes to standards for mediation, they do follow some very strong similarities. It tends to be the execution and the implementation where, they start to differ. So as Kundupramat mentioned, she went for this course that was done online by one of our partners, Sage Mediation. They actually happen to be one of the partners in our network who have embraced moving their courses online quite quickly. It's not easy, and for many organizations, it is a real challenge to move their operations online. It's not just a question of the willpower. I think most organizations, if they could, they would wish that they can adapt so quickly. It's also about, just saying that we want to move something online is easy, but there's actually a lot of details that are not obvious, things that we take for granted. So I know for a fact that the SAGE course that Kundupramat went for, it took almost three times the operational effort just to run the course than if you had to run it in person. There are so many things that could go wrong, and you need to plan for an additional number of contingencies, things that, you have people dropping out, right? I'm sure you experienced that in the course, and I'm sure many people have experienced this. Your connection just drops, and what do you do next? Do you carry on with the training? Do you stop the role play? These sound like very simple questions, and they sound, like they're very boring questions. They're not very exciting, but if you don't have a good answer for them, then it affects the entire course. So just taking from the example that Kundupramat shared, that's some of the challenges that they face. But going back to what I was saying earlier about the traditional method. So generally for most mediation institutions, when we talk about accreditation, when we talk about certification, it tends to fall into two broad aspects. We're looking at your experience, that's one, and then we look at your training, that's two. And even though there's only like two main, broad areas, there's so many combinations of how these two principles can be put together. So in some institutions, they have a huge focus on only allowing the experience, the mediation cases from very specific sources. So for example, there are many service centers, mediation providers around the world, where they say, I will only recognize your experience if your case is done with us. Now, from a standards point of view, you might say, well, that's great, right? They have centralized control over very specific cases. But then that poses a problem in a situation like this now, where if you are so rigid in accepting only cases done with your organization, now that everyone has to go online and they can't actually travel to your organization to do those cases, that really creates a difficulty from a systemic point of view. And then when we come to accreditation, there are also some issues that people have to think about. For example, is it enough that you are trained? Do you also have to take an exam, right? And when it comes to taking an exam, right, the training portion tends to be quite flexible generally for most institutions. When it comes to the exam, it can be quite particular. Should the organization doing the training also be the same organization running the exam, right? And it's not an easy answer. There are many instances of societies and professions where you have a society or a standards body like CIMI, where we are also the examination board, right? We run the exams, and we may not run the trainings, but other people run the trainings, and they will be the trusted partners to deliver that service. I know in Hong Kong, that is definitely the system that operates with the HK Mall running that kind of centralized examination. In Singapore, it's also very common for many of our primary and secondary education. But when it comes to professions, CIMI, for instance, has taken the choice, or rather the path, to say that, we would like our partners to also run the exam. And what we do is we work with them. We audit their services, their training curriculum, their methodologies, and we say, you may run the training and the exams, but we also would like to ask that you ensure in your processes that those who are doing the training for a certain batch of people, they are also not the only assessors for that group. So that's kind of how we try to deal with the conflict of interest. And actually, this approach, just going back to our topic for today, has allowed, I think, some of our partners like SAGE, as Kun Nopramat mentioned, to adapt very quickly. Because once you already have this inbuilt resilience, your system already allows for this diversification, then it's simply a matter of inviting people from different countries, different time zones to be your assessors, because you already allow this to happen. In contrast, if your organization has never centralized their examinations before, right? They are not familiar with how they could reach out to different people across different time zones, because they usually rely on, let's say, CIMI to run the exams. If that was the case, then this would be an operational challenge. So, it's not an easy, topic to tackle, but what I'm trying to point out here is that really, when you want to adapt to an online environment, it has a huge impact depending on where you started from. And sometimes organizations forget to look back at what is the reason behind why they have certain processes in the first place. So one thing about CIMI's accreditation, I'd like to move on to this second portion of my answer, is that we have always said that our accreditation system is driven by principles, not by form. So what does this mean? It means that when we ask our partners, do they have certain things in place? We are not saying that they must have only and specifically this format or this procedure. For example, one very popular topic we often see when it comes to mediation training accreditation is, how many hours do you have in your training course? Now, there are institutions that would say, our minimum is 40 hours, 40 face-to-face hours, and anything less than that, even 39.5, you have to send us a new schedule, right? We don't care, it has to be 40. Now, there's something to be said about the strength of that kind of an approach. But from our perspective at CIMI, I think what has allowed a lot of our partners to be confident in adapting their systems is when they come to us with this question, we don't really go to them and say, is it 39.5? Is it 39.6? What we like to do is we ask our partners and we say, well, why have you designed the course the way that you have, right? Where is your internal consistency? In other words, what are your objectives? Do you have any? If you haven't, you should state. What are your external consistencies? What are you trying to teach, right? There's many forms of mediation. There's many styles of mediation. And are you doing the best that you can? So by benchmarking against internal and external consistencies, the question then becomes more of how are you implementing these principles, whether it's an online or an offline space. And that, I think, allows the CIMI accredited partners and consequently the CIMI accredited and certified mediators to inherit this ability to adapt to situations. Now, it could be an online environment this time around. We don't know what next year will bring. We don't know what future crisis will bring. But because we are always taking this principles approach, it means that our accreditation system has an inbuilt robustness to it that allows our partners to be flexible without sacrificing quality. So this is some of the things that I'd like to highlight that makes, SIMI partners and consequently SIMI mediators very different. And we are still working, just like many other institutions, to figure out what more can we do, right? It's not just about putting your courses online, right? What are the learning points? As Professor Law has already shared, there are many challenges to running a mediation online. He's already given some of these pointers. But nothing beats data, collecting actual data, and then commenting on that data and trying to look for patterns, right? And I think that's going to be quite challenging because right now in many countries with the quarantine and the lockdown, it's difficult to even get activity, let alone collect data. And so I'm coming to the last part of my question, which is, well, what do we do? So one of the things that we have done is we've decided to continue organizing a mediation competition. We did this last year, and this was face-to-face. We thought we should push ahead and run it online this year. And what that will do is allow us to collect data for easily over 100, if not 150 simulations from all these teams running actual cases over 5 days. And these are university teams, but they're also studying to be lawyers, which means that they are fairly professional, right? And they're going to be very skilled because it's, there's a high stakes, it's a competition, and they will be judged by SIMI mediators. So while it's not going to be a one-to-one translation of an actual case with actual mediators and actual lawyers, I think this comes pretty close. And what we hope to do is after the competition is over, regardless of the results, because that's for the teams, for their ambitions, we want to take a step back as an institution and invite our partners to say, well, let's look at the data. What are some of the challenges the teams face? How much of that translates as a forecast, a tool for forecasting what might happen for you moving forward in the last few months of the year, if not into next year? And, get a step ahead of the crisis, right? Because we don't want to use real cases as data. I think that's a bit too late. So this is one of the things that we're trying to do. And we hope that many of our partners will benefit, and likewise our mediators will then also benefit from these updates that we're doing. So that's, I know, a very long answer to the question, but like I said, I didn't really come prepared with slides, and I hope that sort of that more dynamic conversation was engaging for everyone. And I know there are other questions, but that Kun Nupramat has prepared, but happy to also talk more about this. If anyone on the panel or even our moderator, would like to ask some questions on what I just shared. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marcus. Actually, I have several questions for Professor Law and yourself because since I also experienced for the online mediation training, and I think it has some advantages and disadvantages. But anyway, I think that it's give me some kind of very good experience from the online courses. So then I think that if we have time or the participants want to share, then we can discuss further. But right now, I think that I would like to give the floor to Jennifer. As Jennifer, you as the litigation lawyer, and how I like to ask you how you represent or assist clients in the online mediation, and have your clients address any concern if they have to use the online mediation. So what is your advice? So I put all questions together because you can just share with us at once. So Jennifer, please, the floor is for you now.
Thank you, Kun Nupramat. And thank you to the Thailand Arbitration Center for organizing this international ADR webinar series. Thailand is an increasingly important market in Asia and the world, and it is very exciting to see greater Thai involvement and participation in discussions about online dispute resolution. For example, we at Sidley are representing a major Thai company in a dispute involving an arbitration in one jurisdiction and court proceedings in two others. So I'm very delighted to be on this panel speaking about online mediation today. Before I answer your question, Kun Pramad, I also wanted to let the audience know that at the hotel where I'm currently staying, they are actually, unfortunately, conducting its annual inspection of the fire alarm system today. So I seek your understanding if the fire alarm were to go off when I'm speaking. So Kun Pramad has asked about how lawyers would represent their clients in an online mediation and how they would address the concerns that clients may have with the whole online mediation process. So there are two aspects to that question, and I'll address that in turn. Now, first, it's important to note that mediation or advocacy in mediation is not the same as advocacy in litigation or arbitration. So the role of the lawyer is also different. In the first place, a major difference with mediation compared to arbitration and litigation is the role of the mediator. Unlike arbitrators or judges, mediators have no power to issue binding decisions about the disputes. And thus, if you are an advocate for a party to a mediation, it is not sufficient to persuade the mediator. You have to convince the other party as well. And so, unlike litigation and arbitration, which are more adversarial proceedings where you're trying to win the case, in mediation, it's more helpful to think of mediation as an assisted negotiation process. With mediation, the main objective as a lawyer is to persuade the other side to settle, rather than trying to persuade the mediator of the merits of your client's case. And so to be an effective mediation advocate for your client, you need to change from a litigator's mindset of approaching disputes as a combatant to an advocate's mindset of working towards uncovering interests, including the interests of the other side, while creating and evaluating options to find a mutually acceptable solution. Now, having said that, it is also critical at the outset to establish credibility with the mediator and to communicate an intention to buy into the process and partner with the mediator to broker a settlement. And so right from the beginning, from the pre-mediation correspondence, you should already be demonstrating an open-mindedness, a reasonableness, and a desire to settle. If you lose credibility with the mediator, it's going to be harder to get the mediator to fight for you while speaking with the other side. So another thing to note about mediation as opposed to arbitration or litigation is that communications during a mediation process are typically confidential and without prejudice. And what that means is they cannot be used as evidence in the event that the mediation fails and the dispute proceeds to arbitration or litigation. So this is intended to encourage greater candor during the mediation process. And you as the lawyer representing the party to the mediation should definitely take advantage of this. Now, when it comes to online mediation as opposed to in-person mediation, clients might have certain concerns about conducting it online. One of it might be that there's a perceived lack of human connection as opposed to in-person mediations. It is far more difficult to evaluate the visual cues, the body language, and the facial expressions of those involved. Well, if anything, I was going to say with a webinar setup, with Zoom platforms, the body language is not quite visible because the webcam doesn't focus on the body, but it focuses right on the face. So all your facial cues, your facial expressions become much more important. And even something as simple as drinking from a teacup, which I have been doing throughout this webinar, may appear to be more distracting than it needs to be. And I apologize if those actions have distracted you. Another example of the difficulty with evaluating visual cues is that in an in-person setting, one way to draw attention to the speaker, if you're not the speaker, is to look at the speaker, turn your body towards the speaker, and that way the speaker knows that he or she has the attention of the audience. Here, we can't do that. I couldn't look at Professor Francis or Marcus when they were speaking to show that I was listening to them. that can make it easier for other participants to disengage. Also, because it's more difficult to evaluate the visual cues, it might be more difficult to assess the position of the other party, how the party actually feels about a particular issue, or how flexible they are to settle on a particular issue. And of course, the distortions and the delays in video communications may also confound the receipt of information. I think that concern is not insurmountable. As Francis and Marcus have pointed out, there are obviously logistical issues that need to be resolved when you are conducting a mediation online as opposed to in person. But there are also advantages of using online mediation, such as the greater, besides the cost savings, there is also a potential opportunity for greater informality, because people are conducting the mediation process from the comfort of familiar environments rather than going to a neutral or maybe even hostile turf to meet with the other side. And the distance that might be seen as a disadvantage here, the physical distance, can actually be a good thing as well in allowing or reducing the potential for tensions to run too high during the mediation process. And this again encourages settlement and encourages further dialogue. For the most part, I think that clients tend to be concerned as well with potential breaches of confidentiality or the potential for technological glitches. There's a risk that online platforms are not secure, which could result in the leaking of confidential documents. More participants may join the meeting even though they're not supposed to be at the meeting, or the whole session could be recorded, perhaps without the knowledge of the other participants. And this suspicion of the security of the platform might hinder the development of open and honest exchanges in cyber mediation. So the way to go about this, obviously, is to go with a very trusted online provider. You want to make sure that there are security measures in place. Perhaps it could be by protecting the meeting with a password, or setting up a virtual waiting room so that the host of the meeting can decide who to let in or not. I would also suggest that ahead of the remote mediation to sign a mediation agreement. And this is a document that will contain certain important disclosures about fees, confidentiality, record keeping, etc. Not only does this agreement help to educate the parties about the process, but it also enables all attendees, if we have all attendees execute the agreement, even if they're not parties to the actual arbitration case, it can help to address the confidentiality concerns if the case does not settle at mediation. Another solution would be to exchange a list of participants together with the emails and phone numbers of all attendees, so that the host of the mediation can control the participants. I think, given that I've spoken at length, and one concern about online mediation is that people are shorter attention spans, I will leave it at here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for your answer. I agree with you that the online mediation is also the trend that help people to distance their emotion, action, something like that. Because I can share with you that for myself, acting as the advocate in the mediation in Thailand, sometimes we have to be very careful, because sometimes the parties jump to each other. So, but I think that for the online, they cannot jump to each other, right? And especially, as you can see from the technical point of view, they could be calm down, and also from the screen. I have set a few online mediation recently, but I have to help my clients for adjusting their face, because as you can see right now, I also be very small in the screen. I didn't set up this one, so that's difficult for me. But if I have to set up for the online mediation, I will have to put our face and client face on the big screen, that we can see their emotional during the mediation. That is my point. And another issue that I face in the online mediation is the co-mediator. I'm not really sure whether or not you have in Hong Kong or in Singapore. Yes, I heard that Sage try to promote the co-mediator, but I share with you that in Thailand, for the co-mediators is very common. We have like 2 or 3 mediators in one mediation session. So, but the problem right now that I'm facing, that you see for the online, each mediator mediate in the separate location, even though in the same virtual room. Is I have to like tutor them that how to use like the code, something like that, because sometimes it's difficult because 3 mediators want to talk at the same time. That is something that I like to share with you. So then I asked the panelists that what is your tip that our audience can take away from this for if they're going to attend the online mediation as the maybe the parties or as the mediator? What is your tip that three of you can share with us? Okay, let Professor Law, you can share with us the takeaway tips for using the online mediation. You have to unmute, please.
Mike, yeah, sorry. Yeah, yes, you have mentioned actually the information about having the problem in conducting online mediation. With the number of mediators, somehow will affect. So will be coordination on the collaboration way, how to get a consensus in the way to move on will be a problem. At the same time, we will also consider as the party, when they join the mediation, they will be sometimes lost their focus in the process of mediation. Because actually, when they have to look into the screen directly to face the mediator, but they also have to recognize the response of the other side. So they will be sometimes lost the focus, just ignore the mediator or vice versa. So that would be the case that they have to take more attention on both the response of the mediator and the other side response. And the other way we have to notice actually we will say that the party have to do more preparation before going to the mediation. Unlike the offline one, the mediator can provide a better support to both sides. But for the mediation, as Jennifer had rightly mentioned, that because there's some limitation about the body language, about other kind of response that will directly interact with others. So the party have to, through the advocate most likely, will have the chance to prepare more before they can go to the online mediation with a very good result. That will be a very basic understanding. And also, they will have consider is that to prepare, because of the online environment, will have faced some little delay in the response. People not going to answer their needs or they address their problem, but it's because of the lateral technical issues that may hidden or just prolong the response time. And also, you may, as a mediator or the party, will also need to understand what we have just said is the body language. We will not, like a physical one, that we have judged from the response or body language, no more the inside understanding of the other side. So that will have the direct connect will be a little bit effect in the process of online mediation. So they will have the understanding on the process that people are not engaged, but actually they just have the technical issue. And they have to prepare because of the different place have the technical issue on the communication or the technology in the transportation. So they will be suffer in the middle some unexpected interruption because this failure of the internet or other kind of equipment. So they will have to pay more attention or pay more patience on the process. And that will have a very good result actually if they can use understanding the more appropriately.
Yes, Martha, please, you can share the tip.
Okay, so actually, I grew up in the online space, right? My hobbies were, all related to being online. I love playing games, and I actually love watching a lot of things as they move into a new environment and all these apps and technology. So, one of the things that first struck me when it came to mediation, right, this is also a passion of mine, is how a lot of people, when they think of mediation online, they try to do a one-to-one mapping. So like I used to talk to people, or I used to communicate by writing on a whiteboard. I try to find a whiteboard online, right? So that's the thinking. But it doesn't have to be, right? If we take a step back and really try to imagine interacting in an online environment, actually a lot of things can be done, but you just have to tailor your expectations. For example, sometimes when I run a webinar and I want to interact with the audience, a lot of people that I've seen will say, can you use the Zoom emotion to wave your hand, all right, or to give a thumbs up? But to be honest, you can't see much because on your screen, there's only so many faces and it just doesn't feel, it doesn't have that same feeling, right? But if you're familiar enough with like online entertainment, so if you watch a lot of people who stream things like I know in Korea, the mukbang, for example, people eating online, right? That's a thing. Or if you watch people playing games, all day, how they interact with their audience is very interesting. They actually get them to chat very quickly. So you have an entire string of people sending emojis or like a number. Like sometimes they just say, if you want me to do this, press 1. And you see a whole string of ones fill up the chat. And that actually gives a very heartwarming feel that your audience is there with you. Now, this is not a mediation example, but what I'm saying is that if we go back to mediation and we say certain things like, well, how does the mediator build rapport with the parties, right? If it's a one-for-one translation, then you're thinking about things like him talking to the camera, right? Looking at the parties, but honestly, no one can tell. Could there be more, right? Could there be more? And I think this also brings me to the second point in my answer is that I think when you go to an online environment, too many people feel constrained to use one application or one tool. There's no reason for that. So it doesn't mean that just because I'm videoing over Zoom, the document that we share should also be on Zoom. Like we could use Google Docs, right? Or we could use another chat program to discuss things on the site. So one of the things that I noticed in preparation for this mediation competition is we are precisely doing that. So we are actually utilizing one application for the video, right? And the actual chat. We're not relying on email to notify the teams. We've actually got them to download a chat application like Telegram. And that is what we'll be using to coordinate information. And that really just speaks to me to say that, there's a lot more we could do in overcoming the challenges that mediation faces in the online space. If we start to explore more ways, a composite approach, right? Using all the tools at our disposal and don't be too focused or caught up with one solution, because that's the online environment. It's a crazy place and there is no one single super app that can solve everything. Of course, I know our Chinese friends would differ because then they have Weixin or WeChat, right? They would say that's the one app you need for the rest of your life. But people will have their opinions. And the truth is, yeah, if you look at the Western world, the hemisphere, the app ecosystem, it's very specialized, right? You don't have one app that does everything. People use a combination. So we should be doing the same for mediation.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that we should use several kind of application. In when the Thai court promote the online mediation, the Thai court put several kind of the application because Thailand is, I think most of people use the line, but if line, WhatsApp, and but when you talk about the Microsoft Teams or Zoom, for the general people, lay people, they don't use that. I think it's quite a clever approach for Thai court to promote that, okay, you can mediation by using line, no problem. Yeah, so agree. Yeah. Okay, Jennifer, then I think that you can give a tip when you advise the client who maybe not the millennials. Yeah, so I'm not also the millennium, so sometimes I'm also struggling with how to write the whiteboard online, something like that. So you probably can share with us how you help client who was born not in the millennium. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kun Pramat. I think my comments would just be to add on to what Francis and Marcus have already said. I think just bouncing off Marcus's points, I generally agree. I would say, coming from the council's perspective, one must always be mindful of cybersecurity. So even in terms of, being flexible with different platforms or different technology, everything must be subject to, the appropriate security measures being put in place. I think my position might be in between maybe Francis's and Marcus's in terms of the kinds of preparation you could do and the usefulness and the continued usefulness of body language and eye contact. I actually still very strongly believe that eye contact is very important to engage people in conversation. And of course, that's a lot harder to achieve when you are speaking at a web camera, because if I'm looking at a web camera, which I am doing now, I hope that this makes me look like I am making eye contact with you. But in reality, I cannot see myself. I cannot see your reactions because my focus is on the camera. So in order to overcome that and to have the benefit of getting the reactions of the people who are listening to you, I would work in a team. I would ensure that there is someone, a colleague, who is watching the people who are watching me, so that they can see the reactions that are being generated in response to my comments. I would also have in place, I would just increase the amount of preparation ahead of time to get the client to get our team more familiar with the technology that we'll be using during the mediation. So that means doing a test run, multiple test runs if necessary, before the actual mediation session to try to overcome any technological glitches, having contingency plans in place. What will happen if someone loses connection? Do we continue? Do we stop? Do we take a break? Can we continue by phone call? And one thing I'll do is to really plan with detail here. If the call, if there's a technological issue, who reinitiates the mediation session? And it's, I think, better to over prepare here. So, to actually schedule in additional days, which could potentially be used as backup mediation days if something happens on the originally scheduled day of the mediation. And for people who are really very, technophobic, it's also possible actually to get vendors to handle the logistical aspect of hosting online mediation. But from anecdotal experience as well as surveys, I think the more people use online technology to conduct mediation, the more familiar they are with the process, the more, I guess, the more positively they assess the entire process.
Okay, thank you very much. And another thing, I think I experienced one thing when I have an online mediation. I forgot to inform the both parties that you should find a quiet place. Because one case that I experienced, the opposing party just have the mediation because she works in the open area. And so many people in that floor, and it's really noisy. So that is a terrible mediation. Yeah, That's one thing that I experienced one. Yeah, the preparation and the tutorial for the disputants before they joining the online mediation is really important. And I think that for my last question, it actually is my curious to know related to Professor Law's presentation. It's about AI. So I just wondering, I asked all of you that how do you think that the AI will be the important part in the future of the online mediation? Because right now, I think the important thing for the mediation is that the mediator build the rapport between the party. But how AI could that to work instead of we using the human mediator, and then we use AI, is that it will change totally the way we mediate, right? So I ask for your opinion, how AI play the roles for the online mediation. Okay, Professor Law, please.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Kumar. The problem we have to talk about the AI in the process of mediation actually is just like a reminding tool for the mediator to facilitate the whole process on the basis of the, the conversation or the exchange of their words through the system. The system will detect the emotion of the parties and also what's the next step or question he or she may flow out to help the party to build a rapport understanding. There is a very basic understanding in that mode because they have been conducted over 100,000, even 2 million cases in the past 2 years' time. So they have a very big data on understand in particular situation when the party is voicing out some kind of concerns or the wording like this. They will have a very matching approach to advise the mediator how to respond. Definitely, the mediator have the freedom to choose what to do the next, but just take it as a reference. That is the basic model for the idea of using AI in the process of mediation. Actually, is try to not like formal proceedings in mediation about a document, but try to tackle with the emotional concerns and how to benefit the mediator in the process to build the trust, build the rapport, and also build understanding for both sides under an emotional situation. Yeah, that's about the beginning of AI. Maybe in the next round, we will suppose that we'll go further, have more understanding. They will actually predict more on the basis of the dispute issues and the background of the parties. They will have a more prediction on what will happen in the process of mediation. About what we do actually in a mediation, we will have to assess their emotion situation, their possible answer, and also how to deal with a particular high emotion situations. That will be a benefit later on. Maybe get more data to build the more sophisticated AI system.
Okay, thank you, Professor Law. When I heard about that, the AI will detect the emotional of the party. I'm not sure whether or not I should happy or I should be afraid of this kind of mechanism. Okay, so let's share this discussion with Marcus.
Yes, so I mean, I don't really have any more too specific things to add. I think Professor Law has raised some very real concerns. I mean, recently also I've seen people, posting videos of how they can deep fake people on the video chat, and they've actually been quite successful in convincing some ad hoc human tests. And that's always going to be a concern, and that goes back to what Jennifer said about security, right? There's always going to be that concern, and if you can't trust what you see on the video, then what can you do?
Jennifer, do you have any thought to share about the AI things?
Yeah, I was thinking that if AI is used to perhaps predict the outcome of a dispute, if in simpler cases, if it were to go into litigation or arbitration, knowing the predicted outcome might inform the parties of the strength of their positions and hopefully encourage a settlement.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, all the panelists, do you have anything to ask, or if before I close this floor?
I'd just like to echo the thanks that Jennifer said earlier to THAC for inviting us to the panel, taking time to arrange for this session. I hope that, you know, the things that we shared, most of it is anecdotal, at least from my side, but I hope that people enjoyed hearing some of the thoughts. And of course, if they have questions, actually they could have posted it in the Q&A as well. And I really enjoyed, and I'd like to thank Professor Law and Jennifer for their time also.
In a sense, I would say also thank you to our panel speakers, and I have the opportunity to share with you all. And definitely, we have a very good moderator, Nakuma. She actually have a very good leading to discuss more about online mediation and share a very successful feeling interaction we have discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a delight to speak on this panel.
Okay. Before I close the floor, I like to ask whether or not our audience like to address or ask any questions online. If not, then we can close the floor. And actually, and thank you, Professor Laws, Marcus, and Jennifer. Even though it's the first time that I met you online. I'm very happy and enjoy the discussion with you all, and I hope that the COVID-19 will go very quickly, so and end very quickly, and then we can meet each other in person, not virtually, right? And thank you very much to joining this discussion, and thank you very much for THAC to invite me to be the moderator of this discussion. I'm very pleased and very enjoy this session. Okay, so I like to close this webinar right now, and thank you for our participants, all of you, and we hope that we can discuss again about the online mediation in the near future, and see you, and stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.